The night my stepmother told everyone my secret, I didn't cry. I smiled. Because deep down, I knew something she didn't. I can still hear the echo of her voice, trembling with fake sympathy as she stood in front of my entire family. I just think they deserve to know the truth about Emily. Her words sliced through me like glass. Everyone turned to look, my father's disappointment, my stepsister's smirk, my fiancé's confusion. It felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but my voice wouldn't come. Years of trying to earn their respect froze inside me. I'd spent so long being the quiet one, the stepdaughter who smiled through insults, who forgave everything just to keep peace in the house. But that night, peace was no longer an option. Because while Linda thought she was destroying me, she had no idea the kind of truth I was holding back, a truth powerful enough to ruin her world forever. And as they all stared at me in judgment, I decided, this time, I wouldn't stay silent. In our family, image was everything. The Carter house stood tall at the edge of Maplewood, all glass and polished marble, a place where smiles were rehearsed and silence meant survival. From the outside, we looked perfect. Sunday brunches, family portraits, birthday parties where laughter echoed just long enough to cover the tension underneath. But inside, it was a performance, one I'd been forced to master since the day my father remarried. I was 20 when Linda came into our lives, beautiful, elegant, always dressed like she was attending a gala. My father called her his second chance at happiness. I called her a reminder that my mother's memory could be replaced. At first, I tried. I really did. I helped her with dinner, called her mom, even though the word felt heavy in my mouth. She would smile that perfect, painted smile and say, "Oh, Emily, you don't have to try so hard." But I did, because Dad's eyes softened every time I did what she wanted. That was the only approval I had left. Sophie, her daughter, was younger, spoiled, adored, everything I wasn't. Dad treated her like porcelain, careful not to let her break. When guests came over, he'd proudly say, "This is Sophie, my little sunshine," and then add, almost as an afterthought, "And this is Emily, my eldest." That eldest word felt like a title for someone forgotten. At family dinners, I'd quietly pass dishes, refill glasses, and listen to their laughter that always stopped when I spoke. Grandma Helen would occasionally glance at me with sympathy, as if she saw through the act. She was the only one who still mentioned my mother, whispering, "She'd be proud of your strength, Emily." But even her words couldn't fill the emptiness. Linda knew how to charm everyone, especially my father. She'd lean close, touch his arm, and sigh dramatically, "Robert, you worry too much about Emily. She's strong, like her mother was." It sounded like praise. But I learned that in this house, compliments were knives, always hidden in honey. Then there was Noah, the only light that made this home bearable. We'd met at work, and he loved me without conditions. When we got engaged, I thought things would change. I believed maybe Linda would finally see me as family. For a few weeks, she did. She smiled wider, hugged me at gatherings, even called me my daughter in front of everyone. But behind those gestures, something shifted. Sophie became colder. Aunt Grace started watching me with that familiar gossiping curiosity. And Dad, he started asking strange questions. "Is there anything from your past we should know, Emily? You know how people talk." I laughed it off. I thought it was harmless concern. Until one evening, I overheard Linda on the phone, whispering my name, her voice dripping with fake pity. "I just hope Noah's family won't judge her when they find out." My blood ran cold. She was smiling when she hung up, unaware I was standing in the hallway, listening. That's when I realized, Linda didn't want a daughter. She wanted a scandal. And I had just given her one. It began quietly, the way storms always do, with whispers behind half-closed doors and glances that lingered too long. After my engagement, the house filled with excitement. But it wasn't for me. It was for Sophie. She had just started a fashion business, and suddenly every conversation at dinner revolved around her success. Dad would beam with pride, Linda would clap like a proud queen, and I'd sit there, invisible, smiling through the ache. One evening, as Sophie talked about her boutique, I offered, "Maybe I can help you design a website. I know a bit about marketing." Linda chuckled softly. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, patting my hand. "Let's not mix your corporate world with Sophie's creativity. We don't want to confuse her brand." Everyone laughed, except me. My cheeks burned, but I forced a smile. I'd learned long ago that showing hurt only gave them more power. The next morning, I overheard Dad and Linda in the study. Their voices were low, but sharp. "She doesn't need it, Robert," Linda said. "You've done enough for Emily. Let the inheritance go where it's appreciated." Inheritance. The word sliced through me. My father's company, the one my mother helped him build, was supposed to be divided equally. But from the sound of it, Linda was making sure that equal no longer applied. Dad hesitated. "It's not about money, Linda. It's about fairness." "Fairness," she snapped. "Sophie's your daughter too. Or does she not deserve what Emily gets?" That was the first time I realized Linda wasn't just manipulating feelings. She was rearranging the future. Days later, I tried to talk to Dad. "Is it true? About the inheritance?" He looked uncomfortable. "Linda just thinks it's best to keep things simple. You'll understand when you have your own family." My throat tightened. "So I'm not family." He didn't answer. He just walked away, and that silence told me everything. From then on, small humiliations became routine. When Noah's parents visited for dinner, Linda made sure to mention how grateful she was that someone finally accepted Emily, despite everything. Her tone carried a sweetness that made my stomach twist. Noah squeezed my hand under the table. I smiled, but inside, I was trembling. Later that night, Sophie cornered me in the hallway. "You really think you deserve all this?" she sneered. "You're not one of us, Emily. Mom just pities you." I wanted to slap her, but instead, I said quietly, "You'll regret talking like that one day." She laughed. "Only if you're still here to hear it." The next day, my promotion at work was suddenly questioned. My boss told me someone had emailed him concerns about my honesty. I knew instantly who it was. Linda's words were spreading beyond the house now, infecting every corner of my life. At dinner that night, I asked her directly, "Why are you doing this to me?" She smiled, slicing into her steak. "Doing what, dear?" "I've only ever tried to help you." The table fell silent. Sophie smirked. Dad looked down. And Grandma Helen stared at Linda like she'd finally seen through her mask. But I said nothing more. Because that's what they expected. Silence. That weekend, Aunt Grace called me aside during a family gathering. Her voice was low, eager. "Honey, is it true what Linda said? About your past? About what you hid from Noah?" I froze. "What did she tell you?" She hesitated, enjoying the power. "Just that there's a reason your mother's will wasn't in your name. Something about a mistake you made years ago." My vision blurred. My hands went cold. That secret, the one I told no one except a close friend years ago, had reached her lips. Someone had broken into my past. That night, I confronted Linda again, my voice shaking. "You had no right to dig into my life." She leaned in, smiling like victory itself. "Oh, Emily. In this family, the truth always comes out. You should have remembered that before trying to outshine us." For the first time, I didn't look away. "Then let's see how you handle the truth when it's yours." Her expression flickered, a brief crack in her perfect mask. That was the moment she realized I wasn't the quiet little stepdaughter anymore. And for me, it was the moment I decided, if she wanted a war, I'd give her one. Every family has secrets. Ours just learned to wear them like jewelry. Polished, shining, impossible to ignore. After that confrontation with Linda, things didn't return to normal. They got worse. My name became a shadow whispered through the hallways, my every move watched, twisted, and retold. It started small. My seat at the dining table was moved farther down. "Oh, it's just easier this way," Linda said sweetly, placing Sophie next to Dad instead. My opinions at dinner were brushed off with polite smiles. And when Noah visited, Linda turned into the perfect hostess, baking cookies, complimenting him, pretending she adored me. But when he wasn't around, she'd let the mask slip. "Emily," she said one afternoon as I was leaving for work, "you might want to be careful about the stories you tell Noah. You know how men can be, they don't handle damaged women well." I froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" She shrugged, smirking. "Just a thought. I'm sure he loves you, for now." That "for now" followed me everywhere, like a curse. At Grandma Helen's birthday dinner, the entire family gathered. Linda had planned everything, the decorations, the music, the seating. And, apparently, my humiliation. Halfway through dessert, Aunt Grace began talking about family honesty. You know, it's always better when secrets come out early. That way, no one gets embarrassed later. Linda gave her that innocent look, then glanced at me. Oh, I couldn't agree more. The room went quiet. My stomach dropped. I knew they were hinting at me, at that secret she'd been spreading, something personal I thought was buried years ago. I put my fork down. If you have something to say, say it. Linda tilted her head, feigning surprise. Oh, Emily, don't be defensive. We're just talking about honesty. It's important in marriage, isn't it? Noah's parents were sitting right across from us. His mother shifted uncomfortably. I felt my heart pounding, my breath catching in my chest. Dad tried to defuse it. Let's not make a scene, he said softly. But the scene was already made. Every eye at that table was on me. After dinner, I went to my old room, tears burning behind my eyes. Sophie followed, pretending to be concerned. Mom says you're being dramatic, she said with a smirk. If you really have nothing to hide, why do you care what people say? I turned toward her. Because lies don't bother people like you. But I still have something you'll never understand, self-respect. Her smile faltered, but only for a second. You'll need it when Mom finally tells everyone what you did. I stepped closer. You think she's protecting you, Sophie, but she's using you. You'll see. She laughed. You sound just like your mother before Dad left her. Weak and bitter. That broke something in me. I didn't say another word. I just stared at her, silent, burning. The next morning, I found out Linda had called Noah's family privately, telling them she worried about my emotional stability. Noah confronted me later, confused and hurt. Emily, did something happen in your past that you didn't tell me? My throat went dry. Why are you asking me that? Because your stepmother seems to know something you don't want to say. I felt the world tilt. So you believe her over me? He hesitated. I don't know what to believe anymore. That sentence cut deeper than anything Linda could have said. After he left, I sat alone in the dark living room, the ticking clock echoing like judgment. I realized what Linda wanted wasn't just to expose me, she wanted to erase me. But what she didn't know was that I'd stopped being afraid. That night, as I stood by my window, watching the lights from the garden below, I saw her on the phone again, whispering, smiling, scheming. And I whispered to myself, keep talking, Linda. Every lie you tell is a thread I'll use to hang your truth. Because soon, I'd make sure that the woman who humiliated me in front of the family would taste her own medicine, in front of everyone she'd fooled. And this time, there'd be no going back. The night it happened, everything looked perfect, almost cruelly perfect. Linda had planned an engagement dinner for Noah and me, a grand, glittering affair at our house. Candles flickered across crystal glasses, violins played softly in the background. And for a moment, even I believed maybe she was changing. Maybe this was her way of making peace. I should have known better. As guests filled the dining room, Linda floated through them like a hostess from a dream, elegant, gracious, smiling that same smile that had fooled everyone for years. She raised her glass and said, "Tonight, we celebrate family, honesty, love, and new beginnings." I smiled, nodding slightly. But when her eyes met mine, I saw something there, something sharp, waiting. Then she said it. Before we toast, there's something I think everyone deserves to know about our dear Emily. My body went cold. I could hear the faint clinking of glasses, a hush falling over the room. Linda's voice trembled, perfectly rehearsed. She's been carrying a heavy secret, something she's hidden from all of us, even from Noah. I opened my mouth to stop her, but she continued. Years ago, she said softly, Emily struggled with a breakdown. She was treated for mental instability after, well, I won't go into details. But I think, as a family, we deserve honesty before any marriage begins. The room froze. My father's hand tightened around his glass. Noah's face drained of color. Aunt Grace gasped dramatically, and Sophie bit her lip, pretending to look shocked. It wasn't just humiliation. It was annihilation. What Linda had twisted into instability was the truth of my darkest hour, a short, private period after my mother's death when I'd needed therapy for grief. A part of me I never hid out of shame, only out of protection. And now it was weaponized against me. My heart pounded in my ears. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping across the floor. How dare you? I whispered. Linda blinked, feigning surprise. Sweetheart, I only wanted the truth to set you free. You wanted to destroy me, I said, my voice breaking. Noah stood, uncertain. Is it true? I turned to him. Yes. I went through a hard time. I got help. That's not a crime. Linda placed a hand over her heart. Oh, we all support you, dear. But Noah, don't you think she should have told you before planning a marriage? His silence was the final blow. I looked at my father, desperate. Dad, please say something. He stared down at his plate. Emily, maybe this wasn't the best way to find out. But she's right, honesty matters. It felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. I wanted to scream, to tell them all what Linda had done, the lies, the manipulation, the greed, but no one would have believed me. She had painted herself as the saint, the martyr, the misunderstood stepmother trying to protect her family. I left the table in silence, tears blurring the golden lights into ghosts. In my room, I locked the door and sank to the floor, shaking. Every part of me wanted to disappear. The laughter from downstairs echoed like knives, the celebration of my destruction. 4 hours, I sat there, staring at nothing, numb, broken, abandoned. The next morning, the betrayal deepened. Dad called me into his office, avoiding my eyes. Emily, he began, I think you should take some time away. Maybe stay with a friend for a while. Are you sending me away? I asked, barely breathing. Linda's just worried about the tension in the house. And Noah, he's confused. Give him space. My chest tightened. So she wins. He didn't answer. Instead, he slid an envelope across the desk. Your mother's trust fund. I've decided to reallocate it. It'll be managed by me and Linda for now. It was like being stabbed twice, once for love, once for legacy. I left that house with one suitcase and a silence that felt like death. No one came after me, not even my father. 4 days, I lived in the small apartment my cousin Daniel lent me, barely eating, barely speaking. I replayed that night over and over until every word felt carved into my skin. But somewhere in that silence, something changed. The pain didn't fade, it hardened. It turned into something sharper, something alive. Because I realized something Linda never understood, humiliation doesn't destroy strong women. It awakens them. One evening, Daniel walked in with a folder. You should see this, he said quietly. Inside were documents, bank statements, property records, and emails, all signed by Linda. She had been transferring my father's company assets under her name. I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. She used my father's trust to fund herself, I whispered. Daniel nodded. And I have proof. In that moment, everything inside me went still. The grief, the anger, the humiliation. It all turned into a single, burning thought. She thought she'd ruined me. But I finally saw the truth. She'd only given me the weapon I needed. And as I looked out the window that night, the city lights reflecting in my eyes, I whispered the words that would mark the turning point of my life. Let her enjoy her throne while she can. I'm coming for it. In the weeks after I left, grief sharpened into something like purpose. I slept little. I read every line of the documents Daniel had given me until the names and dates looked like a map I could follow. The humiliation Linda had handed me became the spark I needed, not to destroy her with noise, but to expose the ledger of her lies, one careful nail at a time. I started small and quiet. I called an old colleague from my marketing days and asked a favor: if I need to verify digital timestamps, would you help me? He hesitated, then agreed. I met with a lawyer who listened without pity and said, if these transfers are real, she's taken more than money. She's stolen your father's trust. The word stole felt heavy in my mouth, but it lit something in me. Respect, I realized, wasn't given. It had to be reclaimed. Daniel became my anchor. We worked out a plan over black coffee and late-night files. He'd copy bank records. I'd cross-check email trails. We traced invoices, shell companies, the signatures Linda had forged. Sometimes the proof was a simple reply from an accountant. Sometimes it was a hidden memo that read like betrayal in ink. Each piece made the picture clearer. Linda wasn't a grieving stepmother. She was a thief wearing a smile. But evidence alone wouldn't be enough. She'd made herself the sympathetic martyr. She'd rehearsed sorrow for public display. So I needed to choose the stage carefully. A private meeting with a lawyer would expose her legally, but public truth would strip her of the mask before the family, and that would be the real undoing. I imagined her expression when her crowd turned on her. I imagined Dad seeing the receipts, the transfers, the emails that proved intent. I also sharpened my own story. I rewrote my truth into words that sounded like confession and like challenge. If Linda had used my past to humiliate me, I would use her present to shut her down. I practiced my voice until it steadied, not pleading, not vengeful, but unflinching. I would not beg the family to believe me. I would show them the proof and let the truth do the work. There were risks. Daniel warned me. This will blow up everything. Are you sure? I swallowed. Of course I was sure. Losing everything had already happened. The only thing left was to choose how to respond. I built allies quietly. A sympathetic banker agreed to corroborate the transfers if subpoenaed. Noah's cousin, who worked in compliance, hinted he'd help if needed. Even Grandma Helen, who had always sensed the fracture, started asking questions that sounded like breadcrumbs. Have you seen the ledgers, Emily? People keep saying things. Each ally was a small, steady hand on a rope I was pulling tight. At night, when the house felt like an enemy I had once loved, I sat with the folder of proof and rehearsed what I would say. I rehearsed the moment I'd press play on the recordings Daniel had recovered, Linda's own voice, making plans, laughing about managing the funds. I imagined the hush, the shock, the way a lie that had been fed to everyone would collapse under its own weight. There were moments of doubt, the fear that I couldn't go through with a plan, that exposing her would fracture us beyond repair. But those fears were quieter now, like distant thunder. I had been erased, now I was choosing to return on my own terms. The last piece fell into place when my lawyer called and said, "We can subpoena the accounts and arrange for a formal reveal at a family meeting, but you must be ready." I looked at the stack of papers, the digital copies, the recordings. My hands didn't shake. "I'm ready," I told him, and felt the words settle into me like armor. Outside, the street lights burned low against the night. Inside, I folded the documents, packed them into the neat folder I'd prepared for the family, and for the first time since Linda had exposed my secret, I felt something calm and fierce open inside me. Tonight, I thought, tonight she will finally meet the truth I've been holding. The house looked almost identical to the night of my humiliation. The same chandeliers, the same polished dining table, the same people who had once watched me fall apart in silence. Only this time, I wasn't trembling. Linda had arranged another family gathering. She called it a reconciliation dinner, saying she wanted peace before the holidays. The irony wasn't lost on me. I arrived early, calm, collected, and carrying a leather folder that held the weight of truth. The air smelled of roasted lamb and deception. I took my seat at the end of the table, the same place she'd pushed me to before. My father nodded stiffly. Noah was there too, invited by Linda to make things right. Sophie sat beside her mother, smirking, as if waiting for a show. Linda raised her glass with her familiar grace. "Before we begin, I just want to say how happy I am to see our family together again," she said sweetly. "No secrets, no tension, just love." My lips curved into a slow smile. "Then you'll be thrilled about what I'm about to share." The room quieted. I stood, unzipping the folder. "A few weeks ago, I found something interesting. Bank transfers, property deeds, and company documents, all signed under your name, Linda. My father's name too, but the transfers, they lead straight to your personal account." Her smile faltered for the first time. "Emily, what nonsense." I clicked the small remote in my hand. A recording began to play through the Bluetooth speaker I'd placed on the table. Her voice filled the room. "Robert doesn't even check the statements. Once the merger goes through, I'll move the rest into Sophie's name. Emily's share? Gone. She won't even notice until it's too late." Gasps erupted around the table. Grandma Helen's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face went pale. Linda jumped to her feet. "You've twisted this. That's taken out of context." I looked her dead in the eyes. "No, Linda. That's the context you created." I pulled out printed statements, spreading them across the table like a deck of cards. Every transfer. Every forged signature. Every lie. Sophie pushed her chair back. "Mom, is this true?" Linda stammered. "It's all for the family. I did it for us." My father's voice cracked. "For us? You stole from your husband and lied to my daughter." The air felt electric. Years of silence broke open like thunder. I turned to Noah, my voice steady. This is the woman who said I was dishonest. This is the person who questioned my stability. He looked at me, his eyes filled with guilt. Emily, I'm sorry. I should have believed you. I nodded. You weren't the only one. Linda tried to grab the folder from my hand, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. My voice was low, sharp. You humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. You made me doubt my worth. But tonight, you answer for what you've done. My father rose from his chair, trembling. Linda, get out of my house. Her face crumpled. Rub it, please. Out, he said again, louder this time. Sophie began to cry, realizing the empire her mother built on lies was collapsing. Aunt Grace whispered something under her breath. Well, the truth finally showed up. Grandma Helen looked at me, tears in her eyes. You did what none of us had the courage to do. As Linda stormed out, slamming the door behind her, the house fell into a heavy silence. I looked around the table. The same faces that once judged me, now staring at the truth I'd laid bare. My father turned to me, voice shaking. Emily, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I swallowed hard. It's not forgiveness you need, Dad. It's awareness. He nodded slowly, shame softening into sorrow. I took a deep breath and closed the folder. I didn't want revenge, I said quietly. I wanted peace. But peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from truth. No one spoke after that. The fire crackled in the corner, the only sound in a room that had once echoed with false laughter. As I walked out into the cold night air, my heart wasn't heavy. For the first time in years, it was steady. I'd faced them all, and this time, I hadn't broken. Behind me, the house that had buried me in shame was now filled with my silence, not the silence of fear, but of justice delivered. And under my breath, I whispered the words that ended it all. Tonight, she finally learned. The truth doesn't whisper. It roars. The days that followed were strangely quiet. The kind of silence that felt like healing, slow, deep, and honest. 4 years, that house had been filled with noise, laughter, gossip, manipulation, and lies. But after the truth came out, all of it stopped. Linda left the very next morning. No grand scene this time. No tears or explanations. Just a single suitcase, a lowered head, and the echo of her heels down the marble hallway. My father didn't stop her. He couldn't. He stood by the doorway as she walked out, his eyes hollow, realizing too late how much of his family he had lost to her games. Sophie stayed behind for a few days, but the confidence she once carried had vanished. When I saw her in the kitchen, she wouldn't meet my gaze. She mumbled, "Mom never meant to hurt you. She just wanted to win." I looked at her and said softly, "When someone wants to win at the cost of someone else's peace, they've already lost." She didn't reply. But I could see something break in her, the realization that the empire her mother built was made of sand. Noah reached out to me a week later. He came by my apartment, holding a bouquet of lilies, my mother's favorite. His eyes were sincere, his voice trembling. I was a fool, Emily. I believed her lies because they were easier than facing my own doubt. But I never stopped loving you. For a moment, I wanted to fall into his arms and forget everything. But I couldn't. Some scars don't close with apologies. They need time, space, and respect to heal. I smiled sadly. Love without respect isn't love, Noah. It's dependency. And I can't go back to that. He nodded slowly, understanding. Then I'll wait, not for forgiveness, but for your peace. After he left, I sat by the window and watched the sunlight stretch across the city. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped needing validation from people who never truly saw me. A few weeks later, Dad came to visit. He looked older, quieter, almost smaller. He sat across from me and said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know. I was blind. And I'm proud of the woman you become." I smiled faintly. "You taught me something, Dad. You taught me that silence in the face of injustice is the same as betrayal." He lowered his eyes, tears slipping down his face. "I know. And I'll carry that forever." That day, I didn't feel hatred. Only acceptance. The kind that comes when you realize you can't change the past, but you can refuse to let it define your future. Life slowly moved forward. Linda's lies unraveled completely, her forged accounts exposed, her reputation ruined. People whispered her name now, but not with admiration. The same gossip that once fed her power now fed her downfall. As for me, I started fresh. I took a new job in another city, one that valued my voice and my strength. Daniel helped me settle in, and Grandma Helen called every Sunday, reminding me, "Child, truth takes time, but it never fails." Some nights, I still replay that dinner in my mind. The look on her face when the mask fell off, the sound of my own voice standing firm after years of silence. But instead of pain, it brings me peace. Because I didn't just expose Linda. I reclaimed myself. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the need to prove anything to those who doubted you. And as I closed my eyes that night, I whispered the words that had carried me through it all. Respect isn't something others give you, it's something you protect, even when you stand alone.